So first things first, before I dive into any of the actual material with regards to the first rule, I want to encourage you to go onto the prop firm's website and read through all of the FAQs. Now, this might be a little bit time consuming, but trust me when I say that it's better to spend your time and energy in understanding all of their frequently asked questions instead of just getting blindsided by something that maybe was in the fine print that you weren't aware of. And of course, this series of videos is going to be talking about each of those fine print rules in more detail to the point of you understanding them. But at some point, maybe after you've watched through these series of videos, be sure to take the time to actually go through and read those FAQs to be 100% in the know. And so with that being said, let's go ahead and dive into the first rule. So every single prop firm has drawdown rules where basically whatever account size that you're using, whether it's 50,000, 100,000, 200,000 or more, you have a certain percentage of drawdown that's allowed for your account. Now with Nova Funding specifically, which is the prop firm that you've chosen to go with, they have 4% daily drawdown and 8% total drawdown. Now something that's important to note about their drawdown and how it's calculated is that it is trailing drawdown, which means that basically the highest point in equity is where these percentages are actually going to be pulled from. So for example, and to illustrate this, if you had, let's say, a $100,000 account starting out, and then you traded that account into profit to 102,000, the new 8% total drawdown is going to be from the highest point in which the balance or even the equity traded to. So let's say that you're in a trade and prices, you're in a buy, price is going in your direction, and this is the highest point that the trade goes, but then you end up closing the trade down here. Well, maybe you closed out with a balance of 102,000, but the equity was actually up at 103,000. Well, that new 8% total drawdown is going to be taken from the highest point in equity, which was actually at 103,000. Now, the nice thing about Nova Funding is that if you go into the trader dashboard, it'll actually show you the statistic as to what the highest equity point was, just generally speaking, in the time of you trading. And it will also show you the highest equity on any given day, because just like the 8% total drawdown is trailing as your balance is trading into profit, the 4% daily drawdown is also trailing. So to give you guys another example, let's say that you had a $100,000 account, you've traded it to $103,000 highest equity, that would be then taken into consideration for the 4% drawdown. So assuming that you didn't close out the trade up at this high when you're in $3,000 profit, if price were to come back to maybe hit your stop loss and you lose 1% down here, even though your balance is only 1% lower than where you started at 100,000, that would technically be seen as a 4% daily drawdown breach. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're probably thinking, man, that's probably one of the most silly rules for a prop firm to have. Why is that in place? I know that I acted the same way when I heard about this, but we have to take into consideration and understand that these companies are literally giving us more capital to trade with. And so we, of course, have to be trading within the guidelines and rules that they have in place. To take this a step further, if we're actually on the Nova Funding's FAQ section here, we can scroll down and you'll see that there's actually a section for how is drawdown calculated. So even if after me going ahead and giving you guys that example, it's still not 100% clear, just go ahead, read through this. It'll give you a really good example and depiction of how the drawdown is calculated with an example as well. There are going to be videos that you can go through and digest to understand just how to set up a strategy that will make it pretty much impenetrable for you to breach those drawdown rules. So be sure to finish these videos on rules and then go through that material as well afterwards to set yourself up for success in managing the prop firm account.